This happened about 8 years ago. I was 32 and wanted to escape after my breakup. So I decided on a camping trip in Appalachia. I thought the woods would help me find some peace. The campgrounds were surrounded by tall trees and soft moss. I set up my tent and made a fire. I could see an old lake in the distance. The evening was quiet, but I felt a bit nervous. It was just me out there. That night, as I sat by the fire, I heard whispers. At first, I thought it was the wind blowing through the trees, but the whispers didn't stop. I brushed it off, but couldn't shake the unease. I tried to sleep, but I couldn't. Over the next couple of days, the whispers changed. They became clearer, like people having a conversation I couldn't quite understand. I barely slept. One night, I woke up thinking I saw something move in the shadows. Maybe a deer? My heart raced. My surroundings felt different. Animals I usually spotted were avoiding me. I felt the isolation wrap around me like a heavy blanket. I tried to dismiss it. Maybe it was my imagination playing tricks. But those whispers pulled me in deeper. They felt like they were trying to tell me something. I heard fragments, but nothing made sense. It was just sound. Maybe it was loneliness messing with my mind. I wasn't sure. I started taking pictures of the landscape. I thought I could capture its beauty, but it felt different. The beauty I imagined wasn't there. I told myself I shouldn't feel this way, but the whispers kept coming. I almost thought I could make out a name, but I couldn't remember what it was. On my last night, I was exhausted. I thought about leaving early. I wanted this to be a retreat, but it was turning into dread. I sat by the fire again, hoping for silence, but the whispers grew louder, surrounding me. Then I heard it. Jake. Just my name. I jumped up, heart pounding. I spun around in the darkness, but there was nobody there. I didn't know if I should stay or leave. The air felt cold around me. I thought about running, but my legs wouldn't move. A deeper voice whispered, "You're not alone." I turned back to the fire. I thought I saw someone standing off in the trees. I couldn't tell if it was real or just shadows playing tricks. I don't know what happened that night. I packed up quickly at dawn and left, but I've never stopped thinking about it. I still wonder what those whispers were trying to say. I still feel unsettled. I don't think I'll ever go back to those woods again. The weeks that followed my trip felt heavy. I went back to my routine, but the whispers haunted me. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were still lingering, like unfinished business. I avoided the woods and tried to focus on work, but my mind kept drifting back to that night. One evening, I decided to take a drive. I thought a change of scenery might help me clear my head. As I drove, I avoided routes that led anywhere near Appalachia. But somehow, I found myself pulled back toward the mountains. The closer I got, the stronger the memories became. I had to know if I could confront it. I parked my car at the edge of the woods. The trees loomed above me, tall and dark, almost as if they were closing in. I felt a knot in my stomach, but curiosity pushed me to venture in. This time, I wanted answers. As I walked deeper into the forest, I noticed the silence. There were no birds, no rustle of leaves, just an unsettling quiet. I took a few steps and paused, listening, half expecting the whispers to return. Nothing. I was disappointed, but also relieved. Then I saw something that caught my eye. It was a small wooden sign, half buried in the undergrowth. It looked old, weathered, and forgotten. I bent down to get a closer look. The name Rachel was carved into the wood. I hesitated. It felt significant somehow, like the name belonged to that night. Just then, I heard it again, a faint whisper, like a breeze passing through. "Help me." The voice was soft but clear, and my heart raced. I looked around, searching for the source, but there was nothing. I felt a chill run down my spine. I stepped back, and the ground crunched under my feet. Panic surged through me. I didn't want to be here. I turned to leave, but the whispers grew louder, echoing around me. "Jake, you must listen." I froze. That voice was familiar. It was the same deep tone from before, but it felt closer now. Shadows flickered at the corners of my vision. I could feel them, like they were watching me, waiting for something. Then I heard a sudden crash behind me. I spun around. A branch snapped. I could see movement in the trees. Panic took over, and I ran. My heart thundered in my chest as I sprinted back toward my car. I didn't look back. When I finally reached my car, I fumbled for my keys, trembling. I jumped in and locked the doors. I looked up and saw someone, or something, watching from the edge of the trees. Just a glimpse, but it burned into my mind. I drove away, adrenaline coursing through me. I knew I wouldn't find peace this time either, but I had to know who Rachel was and what she wanted. I couldn't ignore it anymore. The whispers were calling me back, and this time I had to listen. The next morning, I woke up in a haze. The images from last night lingered in my mind, their weight pressing down on me. I needed to find out who Rachel was, but the fear of what I might uncover gnawed at my insides. I made coffee, trying to distract myself, but it didn't work. I grabbed my phone and searched for anything related to Rachel, hoping for a lead. I found a local forum discussing unsolved cases from the area. As I scrolled, a name popped up, a woman who had gone missing 8 years ago while camping in the Appalachians. The details matched what I had pieced together, last seen hiking near the same woods I had visited. My hands shook as I read through the posts. Friends and family had posted about their anguish, but no one had ever found her. I needed to know more, so I decided to go back. This time, I wouldn't ignore the whispers. I wasn't going to run away. I drove to the local library, hoping to dig deeper into Rachel's story. When I arrived, the librarian was a middle-aged woman with a soft smile. I approached her, my voice steady but nervous. "I'm looking for information on Rachel Thompson. She went missing 8 years ago." The moment I mentioned her name, the woman's expression changed. "That poor girl," she said softly. She pulled out a few folders and started to lead me to a back room. "We have some articles and reports. Are you sure you want to see this?" "Yes," I replied, feeling both resolute and terrified. Once in the small room, I sat at a table littered with newspapers. Old articles chronicled the search efforts and the sorrowful heartbreak of her family. I felt a pit in my stomach. The more I read, the more I realized that people had speculated about her disappearance. Most believed she had fallen victim to something sinister. Then I stumbled upon a photograph of Rachel. She had bright eyes and a smile that radiated warmth, a stark contrast to the somber articles. I felt drawn to her, a strange connection, like she was trying to reach out from the past. The more I read, the more I understood. There were whispers surrounding her story. Suddenly, I heard a noise behind me. I turned quickly, expecting to see the librarian. Instead, the room was empty, just silence. I shook my head and laughed nervously. "Get a grip," I whispered to myself. As I continued to read, something caught my eye. There was a report about a mysterious figure that had been spotted near the site of her disappearance. The description matched what I had seen last night at the edge of the trees. I felt the air grow heavier around me. This couldn't be a coincidence. Then, everything changed. My phone rang, startling me. I answered, expecting it to be my friend, but it was a number I didn't recognize. A voice, just a whisper, came through the line. "Jake, you have to listen. Come back." The voice sent a chill down my spine. It was the same voice I had heard in the woods. I dropped the phone, my heart racing. I almost bolted from the room. This was getting too real. But deep down, I knew I was being pulled closer to the truth. As I sat frozen, my mind raced. I had to figure out who Rachel was before her whispers swallowed me whole. I stumbled out of the library, my head spinning. I had to regain my composure. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel tightly. I replayed the voice in my mind. Come back. The words echoed like a haunting melody, pulling at something deep inside me. What did it mean? I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to return to the woods where Rachel had vanished. My fear was undeniable, but curiosity was a potent force. So I drove toward the mountains, each passing mile intensifying my sense of dread and urgency. When I finally arrived, the sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows through the trees. The chill in the air prickled my skin. I parked and took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. I stepped onto the trail, the sound of crunching leaves beneath my feet amplifying the silence around me. As I walked, I recalled the reports about Rachel and the mysterious figure. My heart raced with every crack of a twig. I wanted to retrace her steps, to somehow connect with her experience. I focused on the path, scanning the surroundings for anything that might link to the past. Suddenly, I noticed something on the ground. I knelt down to inspect it. It was a small, torn piece of fabric. It was frayed, but I could see a small floral pattern. My heart sank. Was this Rachel's? I took out my phone to take a picture, but just as I did, I heard a rustling nearby. I paused, instinctively tensing. The shadows seemed to shift, and a sense of being watched washed over me. I took a deep breath and called out, "Hello? Is anyone there?" My voice sounded weak and unsure. No response came, just a whispering breeze that sent chills down my spine. I moved cautiously, hoping to catch a glimpse of whatever was out there. But there was only silence, broken by the pounding of my own heart. I turned to continue my search, but that's when I caught sight of something in the distance. Someone standing just beyond the trees. My breath caught in my throat. The figure was dressed in dark clothing, half shrouded in shadows. I couldn't make out any features, but something about their posture felt eerily familiar. "Who are you?" I shouted, but they didn't move. Instead, they turned slightly, their silhouette blending further into the gloom. Panic surged. My instinct screamed for me to turn back, to run, but something rooted me to the spot. I took a step forward, my pulse quickening. "Wait!" I called out, though deep down I feared what I might find. But before I could move closer, the figure faded into the woods in an instant, if swallowed by the darkness. I glanced at my phone. It was 9 o'clock, too late to be here alone. The air had grown colder, and the rustling leaves now seemed like a chorus of warnings. I made the decision. I wouldn't find answers here tonight. Just as I turned to leave, a quiet voice whispered from behind me, "You shouldn't have come back." That ice-cold dread gripped my gut as I spun around, heart racing. But the woods were empty. I was completely alone, but not for long. Someone or something was out there watching, and I was going to find out who or what it was. I stood frozen, the air thicker than before. Had the whisper come from my imagination? I strained to listen, each heartbeat pounding in my ears. My instincts screamed at me to run, to get to the safety of my car, but my feet remained firmly planted on the forest floor. Then, a faint sound broke through the silence, a soft crunch of leaves behind me. I spun around again, scanning the darkness. Anxiety coiled in my chest like a tightening vice. "Show yourself!" I yelled, frustration blending with fear. Nothing answered, except the rustle of leaves in the breeze. I took a hesitant step back toward the path, but a flash of movement caught my eye, a reflection in the underbrush. I squinted, trying to make sense of what I saw. Just beyond a cluster of ferns, an old, weathered backpack lay half buried. My breath quickened again. Could it belong to Rachel? I approached carefully, avoiding the snapping twigs underfoot. As I got closer, I noticed patches of dirt smeared on the bag, as if someone had hastily buried it, or worse, pulled it from the ground. My fingers trembled as I reached for the zipper, and I hesitated. Was this a clue or a trap? Against my better judgment, I unclasped the zipper and pulled it open. Inside, I found a few articles of clothing, most of them dirty and torn, similar to the fabric I had found earlier. My heart sank deeper. But then I spotted something else, a notebook, its pages crumpled but still intact. I fished it out and opened it, the dim light barely illuminating the chaotic scrawls within. Most of the entries were illegible, a jumble of letters and words, but one phrase stood out, repeated over and over. The woods know. What does that mean? I murmured aloud, my voice trembling. The hairs on my arms bristled. An overwhelming sense of being surrounded washed over me. I shoved the notebook into my bag, determination surging through me. I had to leave now. I turned to retrace my steps, but just then, the whisper came again, clearer this time. Come closer. I stopped dead in my tracks. The voice was no longer a distant echo, but a vibrant presence. It felt almost inviting, yet my instincts were screaming to flee. My mind raced. Why was this happening? Who was calling me? Against every instinct, I followed the voice, heart pounding as I tread deeper into the woods. The trees seemed to close in around me, shadows stretching like arms. Each step made me question my choice more than the last, but curiosity propelled me forward. "Who are you?" I called out, hoping for a response, but just silence answered me. A few yards ahead, the path diverged into two. I hesitated, the whisper echoing in my mind, tugging me toward the left. It felt wrong to follow something supernatural, yet I felt tethered to it, like I was meant to be there. Steeling myself, I chose the path and pressed on. My breath came faster as I made my way into the unknown. That's when I saw it, something glinting under the moonlight just ahead. I leaned closer, my heart racing again. Was it more fabric? A warning? But then, everything went dark. The world around me vanished, swallowed by an unexpected and suffocating void. I could hardly catch my breath, swallowed by the silence enveloping me. Panic clawed at my throat. I had to find the light again. I had to escape. I gasped as the darkness engulfed me, falling into a void so deep I lost all sense of direction. The silence was suffocating, pressing against my ears. Just when I felt I might drown in the emptiness, a flicker of light flashed in front of me. Desperation surged, and I chased after it. Suddenly, I stumbled forward, crashing onto the forest floor. My hands scraped against rough bark and cold moss. I blinked rapidly, trying to adjust to the dim light filtering through the trees. I was back in the woods, but everything felt different. Shadowy figures danced in the periphery, shapes that darted away when I turned to face them. "Hello?" I shouted, my voice shaky, though it barely felt like mine. I rose to my feet, tripping over roots and brambles. Each breath I took came faster, the panic knotting in my stomach deepening. Then I heard it again, the whisper, softer now, almost like a breath brushing against my ear. "Find me." I swallowed hard, my heart thudding in response. "Why?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling. No response came, just the swaying of the branches overhead. Every instinct told me to run, but curiosity pinned my feet as if the ground were grasping at my ankles. A sudden rustling cut through the night. Something or someone was nearby. I whipped around, trying to catch a glimpse of whatever lurked in the darkness. The shadows seemed to thicken, swallowing up the little light that remained. Swallowing back my fear, I turned toward the voice again, desperate to understand. "I'm coming," I cried, though I could barely convince myself. The phrase echoed out into the night, swallowed by the trees. As I forged forward, the underbrush became thicker. Veiled branches clawed at my clothes, and I ducked low to avoid snagging on the sharp edges. a gnawing sensation. My gut told me I was being drawn deeper into a snare. Memories of the lost backpack and the notebook surged back. What if someone else had been here, trapped just as I was? I pressed on, driven by the urgency of the whisper. I needed answers. Each step felt like a warning I ignored, and I suddenly regretted my decision to trek into the woods alone. Just as I rounded a bend, I stumbled into a clearing. What lay before me took my breath away. A small, dilapidated cabin stood at the center. Moonlight cascaded over the structure, revealing broken windows and a door hanging ajar. I approached cautiously, an unsettling chill creeping down my spine. Was this where the whispers were coming from? My heart raced as I approached the front door, which creaked eerily in the wind. "Is anyone in there?" I called out, my voice shaking. No answer came, but an uneasy feeling settled in the pit of my stomach. The whisper returned, now almost urgent. "Help me." I hesitated on the threshold, my heart thumping loudly in my ears. What awaited me inside? My hand reached for the door, but I stopped short. Something wasn't right. Just then, a loud crash echoed from within, followed by a low growl. I staggered back, the air suddenly thick with dread. Whatever was in there wasn't seeking help. It wanted something else entirely. Suddenly, the whisper morphed into a loud shriek, silence shattering around me. With my heart racing, I turned to flee, but before I could move, something shot out from the shadows, blocking my escape. I was trapped. My breath caught in my throat as the figure stepped into the moonlight. A child stared back at me, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and disbelief. I blinked, trying to comprehend what I saw. He looked no older than 10, with dirt-smudged cheeks and tangled hair falling into his eyes. "Don't move!" I shouted, hoping to assert some control, but my voice wavered. The boy didn't respond, just took a shaky step toward me. "Please, help," he whispered, his voice trembling. "They're coming." A chill ran down my spine. I didn't want to entertain the idea that something else lurked nearby, but the dread coiled tighter in my chest. "What do you mean? Who's coming?" I asked, instinctively backing away from the approaching shadows. He pointed toward the cabin. "In there, they want to take you too." Confusion flooded over me. I looked back at the cabin, feeling an odd pull toward it despite the terror wrapping around my mind. "Was it you who was whispering?" I pressed, feeling desperate to understand what was happening. The boy nodded, but then suddenly he glanced over my shoulder. His face went pale. "Run!" he screamed. Before I could react, he dashed into the woods, disappearing into the darkness. A rustle followed, and I felt the pressure of something looming behind me. Panic surged, igniting every instinct to flee. I turned to sprint after the boy, but a low growl reverberated through the air, freezing me in place. Taking a breath, I turned slowly. The shadows shifted, revealing a shape that sent my heart racing. It wasn't human. A creature hunched low, teeth bared, eyes glowing like embers. My legs felt heavy, but I forced myself to step back, my survival instincts kicking in. I had to think fast. I couldn't just stand there. I needed a plan. I glanced back toward the cabin. It provided no comfort, just the promise of dread. As I looked between the creature and the darkness of the woods, something caught my eye. A glint of metal near the cabin's entrance. With a rush of adrenaline driving me, I sprinted toward the door, hoping against hope that I could find something inside to defend myself. I could hear the growls closing in as I reached for the doorknob. It was cold, and I twisted it quickly, flinging the door open. I stumbled inside, heart pounding, nearly losing my balance as I hit the wooden floor. Inside, the darkness enveloped me even more, and I squinted, trying to make out any details. Broken furniture loomed like specters in the corners, and dust hung in the air like thick fog. That's when I saw it. A small, tattered notebook rested on the floor near the fireplace. My breath caught. It looked unsettlingly familiar. I knelt down to grab it, my hands trembling. As I flipped it open, pages fluttered in the draft, and I caught a glint of drawings, wild and frantic. They were of the very woods I just escaped, but twisted and dark. "I need to know," I murmured, realizing this might hold the answers. But before I could pull out any more information, something slammed against the door behind me. The creature had followed. I had to move. As I stood to flee deeper into the cabin, I willed my legs to carry me away from the ever-growing danger. That's when a second whisper echoed inside my mind, more urgent than the first. Finish the story. And with that, I was plunged into another fight for survival. Panic surged as I scrambled further into the dark cabin, clutching the notebook as if it held the key to my survival. There was no time to think. I could hear the creature pounding against the door, its growls growing more feral by the second, each thud resonating through the old wood like a death knell. "Where do I go?" I muttered, glancing around desperately. The room was filled with shadows that seemed to sway and close in around me. My eyes darted to a narrow staircase leading up. The thought of being trapped in a small space made my skin crawl, but I had no other choice. I dashed towards the stairs, taking them two at a time. I reached the top and found a small landing that opened to a few darkened rooms. I could hear the creature's growl morph into a snarl, and I froze, praying it wouldn't find me. Peering through the door to the first room, I spotted a dusty old trunk. I raced in and pressed my ear against the wood, listening for any signs of movement outside. Only silence met me, but I knew it wouldn't last long. I yanked the trunk open, hoping for something, anything that could help. Inside were old clothes and a rusty flashlight. I grabbed the flashlight, praying it still worked, and flicked the switch. A beam of light flickered to life, cutting through the gloom. That's when I noticed something gleaming at the bottom of the trunk. I dug deeper and pulled out a silver pocket knife. It felt heavy in my hand, and for a moment it brought me a small measure of comfort. I had a weapon now. Just then, a loud crash echoed from downstairs, splintering wood and my resolve. The creature was in the cabin. My heart raced as I stepped back, trying to bury any thoughts of what I might face when it reached the stairs. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to focus. What had the boy said? "They want to take you too." The whispers danced at the edge of my consciousness again. Finish the story. I couldn't forget that. I had to understand this place and the truth behind the boy's warning. With the flashlight beam steady, I scoured the room for anything else that could help me. As I swept the light across the walls, a series of symbols caught my attention. They were carved deep, swirling markings that pulsated with a faint, ethereal glow. I approached the wall cautiously, tracing one of the symbols with my finger. A jolt of energy rushed through me, and I felt a connection to something beyond myself. It was as if I could hear whispers intertwining with the wind, a mix of joy and sorrow, pleas for help, and warnings to leave. Suddenly, the door below creaked open, and I heard heavy footsteps. Fear seized me. It was searching. I had to make a choice: stay here and confront whatever that thing was, or somehow find a way to escape into the woods. As I glanced back at the symbols, I knew they held my answer. My heart was pounding, and the creature's presence loomed closer. But maybe, just maybe, there was a way to use the cabin's secrets against it. I tightened my grip on the knife and prepared to act, ready to face whatever ancient force had been unleashed. It was all or nothing now. The noise from downstairs grew louder, the creature's growls now mixed with the sounds of wood splintering under its weight. I had moments, maybe seconds, before it discovered me. My heart raced as I glanced around the dimly lit room. I needed to act fast. The symbols on the wall pulled at me. I gave one last look at the trunk, but I couldn't waste time. For more. With the knife in hand, I stepped back to the glowing markings, feeling that surge of energy once more. Perhaps they weren't just random carvings. Maybe they were a way to defend myself. I took a deep breath, unsure if the symbols could help me or draw the creature closer. My fingers flew over the carvings, repeating the shapes I had felt. "Finish the story," the boy's words echoed in my mind. What kind of story could save me now? I forced myself to focus, recalling the rush of energy when I touched the walls. As the footsteps approached the base of the stairs, I pressed my palm against the nearest symbol. A warmth spread through me, and a faint hum filled the air, vibrating through the floorboards. It was then that I noticed a low, pulsing light around my fingertips. Could this have been what the boy meant? My breath caught in my throat. I couldn't help but wonder if it would work against the creature. Would they listen if I called on them? Just as I steeled myself to try, a shadow darkened the doorway beneath me. The creature was there, filling the space with its hulking form. I couldn't see it clearly, but the glint of its eyes pierced through the dimness, staring right at me. Panic clawed at my throat. I needed a distraction, something to buy me time. I grabbed the flashlight, whirling around to face the beam towards the trunk, hoping it would catch the creature's eye. I turned it on, illuminating part of the room, but that only seemed to make the creature more enraged. It snarled, pacing back and forth, and I could see the sharpness of its teeth glistening in the shadows. In a burst of desperation, I shouted, "Leave me alone! You can't have me!" My voice trembled, yet it echoed around the small space. The creature paused, its eyes narrowing, and my heartbeat quickened. It was listening. Then, as if on cue, the symbols on the wall flared brighter, a cold wind sweeping through the room as the hum shifted into a deafening roar. I could feel the energy hit a peak and sensed it was about to explode. My panic morphed into resolve. The creature lunged, and I barely sidestepped to avoid its massive claws. I had just enough time to leap towards the symbols, shouting words of hope and desperation into the swirling markings. The light erupted, enveloping me, and I could feel the weight lift slightly, like I was tethering myself to something greater. But then, everything went dark. I hardly had a moment to process when I heard a voice, low and melodic, rising above the chaos. "You've found it, but you must choose wisely." My heart raced. Who was it? And what did they mean, choose wisely? A new fear crept in, growing within me, and I suddenly felt very small and very lost in this fight for my life. I bolted. Breathless, the world around me flickered back into existence, but I wasn't in the cabin anymore. I stood in an open space where the overhanging trees no longer felt oppressive and the whispers lay dormant. It was as though the woods held their breath, waiting. "Choose wisely," the voice echoed again, now clearer. I spun around, my heart pounding, scanning for the source. A faint silhouette appeared at the edge of the clearing, a figure shrouded in shadows, yet familiar. Rachel? I took a step closer, my voice a mere whisper, still wrapped in disbelief. Each pulse of adrenaline pushed me toward her. But she was different now, ethereal, almost glowing against the twilight. "Jake?" she said softly, the shadows swirling around her like mist. "You came back for me." I don't understand," I stammered, glancing around nervously. "What happened to you? Why did you disappear?" With a gentle wave, she silenced me. The whispers echoed again in the backdrop, but this time I could make out their intention. "Help me." They cascaded around, wrapping me in memories and emotion. Did you call me here?" I asked, desperate for clarity. What is this place? The woods know, Rachel replied, stepping forward. They remember everything, but they don't give answers easily. You are at a crossroads. Suddenly, the atmosphere darkened again. I could feel a presence lurking, hidden but very real. Rachel's expression shifted, her eyes widened. You must help me before it's too late. Make a choice. Swallowing hard, I staggered backward. Choices? What choices? The creature was out there, thrumming with malevolence. The boy's warning echoed in my mind, but Rachel's piercing gaze anchored me. What do you mean? I pressed. I can't grasp what I'm meant to do. I came here to find you, but now I just want to survive. Rachel's expression softened, a ghost of hope glimmering in her eyes. The woods remember your story. Finish it, and you can set us both free. But you cannot waver. There are forces out there that want to bind you here. You expect me to finish a story after everything I've seen? Fear and frustration made me feel raw, a storm raging within. What if I fail? Then you remain, she said, her voice now a haunting melody in the breeze, lost and swallowed by what lurks in the dark. In that moment, the weight of her words hit me. It wasn't just about Rachel anymore. It was about countless others, a history, an unbroken cycle. I realized I had to confront what lay ahead, not just for myself, but for those caught between worlds. The shadows shifted, unsettlingly close, forming shapes that taunted me, daring me to retreat. I turned toward Rachel again, feeling the pulse of determination surge through me. I'm ready, I declared, despite trembling limbs. I'll finish the story. As those words escaped my lips, the ground beneath me trembled, and the clearing darkened once more. The veil between worlds lifted, and behind Rachel, the shadows
took form. The creature, its luminous red eyes glaring, its growl reverberating through the clearing like an echo of despair. It had returned, hungry for the lost. Before it could advance, I surged forward, adrenaline coursing through my veins. "Leave her alone!" I shouted, thrusting the knife I had found at the creature. The weapon surged with energy as I connected it with the swirling marks Rachel had left behind. As the blade made contact, a blinding light erupted, shaking the ground with a thunderous roar. The shadows coiled and writhed, pulled in, as if the very essence of the creature was being diminished, the whispers rising and falling in ebbing waves. "Finish it!" Rachel's voice rang in my ears, guiding my hand to the pulsating symbols. As I pressed the blade deeper into the mark, I could see the creature straining against the energy, raging, fighting back. In a final surge of power, the whispers crescendoed, forming into coherent words. "Set us free." With that, I plunged the knife into the earth, my voice flowing with purpose, echoing this plea until it reverberated against the very heart of the forest. The shadows writhed, and the blinding light became a whirlwind of energy. Just as it seemed the darkness would consume everything, it burst forth, engulfing me in a tempest of light and sound. Then, silence. I opened my eyes and took a breath, feeling strong, liberated. The clearing had returned to stillness. Rachel was gone, but something tangible lingered in the air, a solemn promise of release. I stood alone, grasping the knife, my heart racing. The woods settled, transformed into something both familiar and foreign, as if recounting unsung stories. I turned away, the whispers now fading into the breeze. Yet deep down, I sensed questions would linger. What would happen to all the lost souls? Was the cycle truly broken? Even as I stepped back toward the path, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It felt like the woods were still sharing secrets, memories entwined with mystery. As I left the clearing, I felt changed, but echoes of doubt remained. I had survived, yet I couldn't ignore that this story wasn't fully over. The woods would always be there, waiting, shrouded in whispers, tangled in shadows. My journey might have just begun.